Welcome to the Kickin' It Forward podcast, the podcast that brings you amazing stories of hope, power, and perseverance so that you can overcome obstacles in your life. Listen closely while we take you through stories of amazing people that have overcome the mighty mountain of cancer as well as other obstacles to become legacy makers and peak performers in their fields. It's our hope that this podcast will leave you inspired and motivated to move the mountains in your life so that you can become your best self. This show is brought to you by the Kay Yow Cancer Fund, and in the words of our founder, the great Kay Yow, when life kicks you, let it kick you forward. Please enjoy the show. What's up, podcast family? It's Odell Bazell back with another amazing interview on the Kickin' It Forward podcast, brought to you by the Kay Yow Cancer Fund. And I am here with my sister from another mister, Miss Erin Hinman. And if you don't know Erin, she's an amazing person. Not only is she a stage 4 breast cancer survivor, but she's been married to her amazing husband and best friend, Steve, for 15 years. And they have 3 beautiful children, and they live in Georgia. But here's why I call Erin my sister from another mister. She, like me, and many of you, maybe privately, but you love them too, love serial killer documentaries. Now, I just want to start out the interview, Erin, by asking why? Like, why do you think you like why do you think you like them? Then we'll get into all the other stuff, but I'm just curious, and maybe our audience is too.
I think it's just fascinating to kind of explore the mind and the mastermind, I guess, if you will, behind the person committing the crimes. I mean, why are they doing this? And what, just their way of thinking is so different from the average person, I feel like. So to me, it's fascinating.
I would have to say that. Yeah. And it's kind of like the phenomenon when everybody slows down when they see a car accident. It's like, what happened?
Right.
Are they okay? It's kind of like it doesn't happen as often. Like somebody that does those types of things is not normal. Like it's not a normal thing. Right. So you're thinking, and I even think this is maybe me. I'm not putting this on you, but this is maybe me. It's like you're kind of making sure that the people around you aren't like that.
That, and I'm double checking myself. I'm like, do I have any of these traits?
Right. But anyway, sorry about that. We're on the Kickin' It Forward podcast, and we're talking about good stuff, y'all. If y'all been listening, y'all know this is all on the up and up. Coach Yow's famous saying, when life kicks you, let it kick you forward. And we're going to be talking about how some things have kicked Erin. But before we get into all of that, Erin, I want to talk about your life in Virginia. How did you grow up, and what kind of led you to where you are today?
So I grew up in a small town called Winchester, Virginia, kind of a normal middle-class family, played high school sports, had a little brother I used to beat up, and now he's bigger than me. Supported parents, and I went to college at James Madison University, and then randomly met my husband through Virginia Tech through a mutual friend, and so we dated on and off for many years. And then he went to school at Georgia Tech for grad school. And then we got engaged and I moved to Georgia. So I've been here a little over 16 years.
Love it. Now I have to ask this, that mutual friend that connected you, what kind of toast did they give at your wedding? Because they had to take credit for it.
So he was unfortunately not able to attend our wedding. He runs a big farm and could not get away. But his brothers, my husband's brothers, did a pretty good toast at our wedding. That was very entertaining. So, but we are still friends with the guy's name is Buck. He introduced us. So we're still friends with him today.
That's amazing. And I wanted to ask that specifically because of like the ripple effect that different people have in our lives, the influence that people have, even though they're not always with us. And even though maybe they were friends in a different season of life, they brought us all together. And that's really why we're here with the Kay Yow Cancer Fund, through Coach Yow's ripple effect of her impacting all the lives that she did when she was alive, but also what she's doing at this point. And so what's really exciting is you go from Virginia, and people say different things about Virginia. I'm from North Carolina. We have our sayings about Virginia and all that stuff. And you move to Georgia. Now, Erin, when you're in Georgia, kind of talk us through the timeline of when you were diagnosed and what was going on in your life.
Okay, so we got married in 2006, had our first daughter in January of 2010, and then our son was born in November of 2011. And so I was still going through, postpartum, all that stuff. My checkup was actually delayed because of the holidays with my OB. And so I had actually developed a very strange rash on my breast. And I was like, that's weird. I wasn't breastfeeding. Unfortunately, my son refused to do that. So anyway, that's a story for another day. But anyway, I mentioned it to my OB, and she was concerned immediately, which actually freaked me out because I was like, it's just rash. And she, prescribed a cream for it, but she said, if it's not better in 1 week, I need you to call me. And she's like, do me a favor and stay off the internet. Well, the second I got home, I jumped on the internet.
Of course.
And breast rash, and it scared me. I was like, oh. So I did follow up. I'm normally like, whatever, it'll go away. But I followed up with her, and she sent me to my dermatologist. And, normally it takes forever to get into the dermatologist. I got in the next day. And she said, I'm not sure what this is, but let me do a biopsy. And I had told her I was concerned what I'd read on the internet because, Dr. Google. But anyway, so she said, I'll call you in a week. Well, she called the next day. So I knew. I had an intuition. But she took the liberty of getting me an appointment at one of the best breast care centers here in Atlanta. And I took it. And I believe it saved my life 100%. So I had, amazing treatment. I started chemo 2 weeks later. And inflammatory breast cancer is extremely serious and rare and aggressive. So I'm so lucky. I just thank my lucky stars every day that I was in the right place at the right time and had access to great care.
That's great. And that you had that,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to ask, just being a parent myself, obviously not a mother, but so you have like little children, right. You have little children at this time. And what did that, because you said you freaked out. You said that a couple times.
Right.
So then this was before you even got the diagnosis.
Right.
So I want to ask this carefully, did that freaking out help you with the diagnosis, or did it just make it worse? What do you think?
I think it made it worse because I was acutely aware that I had an almost newborn and a not quite 2-year-old. And so I was just like, what am I supposed to do? And that whole just the moments before what's going to happen and what the treatment plan is and everything, it's just a lot of what ifs and what if I die? What if, and I distinctly remember I was reading a bedtime story with the kids the night after I was diagnosed, and I had to leave the room. I was sobbing because I was like, what if I don't get to do this anymore? And so, it was really, really hard to accept the fact that, this is my ticket and here we go. So, yeah.
Wow. And talk about the recovery. Because again, I'm in I still have young children, mm-hmm. and they're a handful at this point. Yeah. And so you and your husband, like once you get the treatment plan and once you know all the things you have to do, how did you manage your emotions and how did all of that work with your mindset?
Yeah. Well, looking back, I don't know how I did it. I was 34 years old, so a bit stubborn and, but I did, I chose to take a positive attitude, and I was like, okay, well, if I have to do this, then I'm going to be the best damn cancer patient there ever was. And so I researched and I talked to people and, but I won't lie, it's hard, especially chemo. I've got these 2 little kids and There were days where I remember laying on the floor and be like, if I can just get through the next 15 minutes, it'll be okay. And so those were the hard days. So I did chemo first, and then I did double mastectomy with a partial reconstruction that summer. And then in the fall, I did 35 rounds of radiation. So it was 2012 was a year that just kept on giving.
Wow. So you mentioned earlier when we first were talking about it, the support system that you had and how you were very fortunate and grateful that you had help. Were there support groups? Were there other people that you kind of leaned on to help you? If so, who were those people?
Yeah. So crazy thing, we have no family here. So that was hard, especially when you have little kids. You can't just be like, hey, you can take the kids. But we had awesome friends who stepped up, and friends that would take turns watching the kids when I would go to chemo, so Steve could go with me. So yeah, we had a village. I was not in any support groups at the time because IBC is such a rare form of breast cancer. I never really felt like I fit in. But that said, there were some online forums that I would go and, just read and try not to scare myself too bad. Again, trying to temper myself with the internet. But the most beneficial thing I did, other than having family and friends, I started a blog. And it was originally a way to keep family and friends updated because, in cancer world, things can change in an instant. But what I found was that it was extremely healing for me to write about it. And I enjoyed it. I kind of took a humorous spin on cancer because I did have little kids. And I was a hot mess before I had cancer. So this was like Hot Mess Express.
Hot mess.
So, but for me, I've always enjoyed writing. So it was a great way for me to not only share, but to just get my thoughts out. And, I'm a real person going through this. And so I don't update it. I can't talk. I updated it one last time the end of January for my 10-year anniversary. But I was like, it's just for cancer. So yeah, but again, I had a ton of support from, and our family would come down. It's not to say they never came here, but they don't live here. So friends and, just people in the community, it was awesome.
That's amazing. Support's important. And I want to ask you a couple questions related to your blog. A lot of people that we've interviewed, a lot of people that are connected to the fund talk about writing and it being cathartic. Have you ever thought about, like, now your kids are older, like they're not, grown-ups or anything, but they're older. Have you ever thought about having them read it?
I haven't, but I think I will as they get older. It's so interesting because they were so little when I went through treatment. They don't really have a memory, but my oldest is now 12. And so she's, they've started asking questions and we're honest and say, this is what mommy went through. And, did I lose my hair? Yes. And so, they kind of have just basic questions, but absolutely. I think, as they get older and are able to understand more, for sure.
Yeah. I think that, and for anybody listening, if you've written anything on your journey, it, of course, like you said, Erin, it's helpful to you and therapeutic and all that stuff. But I think a lot of times parents don't realize how their past and overcoming the things could help their kids. Because a lot of times our kids just see us and they think mommy's a superhero or whatever, or mommy can do anything. Mommy knows everything. And to read that vulnerability, I think they could relate to you and to relate to people better, but they could also learn how to overcome things. So that was just something I was thinking about. And here's the other thing for those that are, or maybe they're like your family, Erin, that lived, far away and they couldn't help on a regular basis like they want. What advice do you have for those individuals that have people in their family that are going through, or even after they've recovered, how they can help?
I would say just keep in touch, check in. My sister-in-law would text me every couple days, how you feeling? So just still feeling like I was connected. And a lot of people I think feel, oh, I don't want to bother her, like she's not feeling great. But honestly, I welcomed the distraction. For me, I was lucky. I wasn't sick with chemo. I just, I didn't feel great and I was very tired, but I craved, like, please give me a piece of normal. Like, tell me about your bad day, or, tell me what your dog did yesterday, because I wanted to hear that. I wanted to feel normal. And so my family was great about, just kind of carrying on. Of course, we acknowledged that I wasn't well, but they also treated me like the old Erin. So I appreciated that a lot.
That's good. That's good. And a lot of times we don't know what to do. I've had both my grandmothers had cancer, and my best friend's mom had cancer. And it's always like, what do I do? Do I tiptoe around it, or what do I do? And I love that advice. Just check in, understand. Hey, tell me about your day. Did you stub your toe today? Like, what happened to you? And all this stuff. I think that's great perspective. And Erin, the title again of this podcast is When Life Kicks You, it's Kicking It Forward, because of Coach Yow's famous quote, when life kicks you, let it kick you forward. For somebody that's not going through cancer, but maybe they're going through a job transition, maybe a job loss, maybe a relationship loss, or like you, they have tiny humans that they're taking care of and they're going through a tough time. What advice would you have for them as it relates to how they can kick life forward?
I would say, first and foremost, be kind to yourself. I mean, you are human and you deserve to be here. So whatever it is, give yourself a moment to grieve whatever your situation is, and then figure out a way to move forward. And that might not be easy. It might be hard, but believe in yourself. You are worth it. Someone said that to me early on in my treatment when I saw how much it was going to cost. And I was like, ooh, holy cow. But you're worth it. You're human and you deserve to be here with everybody else. So I think, it's really important to be kind to yourself, and then figure out a way to move forward, or get help if you need help.
That's good. That's good. Now, before we get you out of here, I want to ask you a couple fun questions, if that's okay. So you were, I want to get the timeline right again, because I think you had your oldest daughter in. You're
getting to the fun part of my cancer story.
No. I'm trying to create a timeline so the question has context.
Okay.
Your oldest daughter, she was born in what year?
2010.
2010. Okay. And so you said she's 12 now.
Correct.
And your youngest, you have 3 children? You have 3?
I do. That's when the story gets crazy.
See, that's what I said, for context. See, you know where I'm going with it now.
Yes.
So talk about how and the reason why I say it's a fun question, because when new life is brought in, when you feared that, you might not be here.
Right.
Talk about that experience and how that impacted your life and your family.
Yeah. So my son, he's our middle kiddo. He was the one that was born, and then I was diagnosed right after he was born. And honestly, I had a ton of guilt because I was not the mom to him that I was to my oldest. And I carried that for a long time, because I was like, it's not fair to him. He didn't get the mom he deserved. And it took me a while to really come to terms with that, because I did feel so guilty. And of course, he's turned out fine. He's great. But once I finally accepted that, okay, it wasn't the momming that you had planned on or had done with your oldest, but let's make it work. And then in the summer of 2014, we got a surprise positive pregnancy test. Talk about surprised. and slightly horrified because I had been on chemo. I had been told that my fertility would be affected. Like, we were certainly not trying to have another baby. In fact, I actually thought I had gone into menopause. So when I finally was like, you know what? I feel like I might be pregnant. And I went to Target and got a test. And I was like, my husband didn't even believe me. He was like, you have to be kidding. He's like, I'm not going to believe you till you go to the doctor. So anyway, it was a very stressful pregnancy because they were watching me very closely. I was on a treatment that I had to stop because I was pregnant and didn't want to, have any more impact on the baby. We decided not to find out the sex because the baby was a surprise. But anyway, Emma was born in February of 2015. Her middle name is Hope because we felt like she kind of represented this awesome culmination of, sadness to healing to happiness again. So I will say my oncologist was not thrilled when we found out I was pregnant. She referred to me as her problem child. But that, again, all that to say, I've had fantastic medical care and access to that care. And, I'm so grateful, but also determined to make sure other people have access to this care. I mean, I 100% believe if I hadn't had great insurance or I hadn't had access to the doctors I did, I would not be here today for sure.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And so now that you have your 3 kids, here's my last question before we get you out of here. What was and maybe if there is a good answer to this question, and great, if not, it's all good. What was the time where you, after your treatments and after all that stuff, where you felt normal? Was there that time? Have you had that time yet?
I would say I have a new normal. From a mental aspect, from a physical aspect. Obviously, my body changed with cancer and surgeries and all that stuff. But I've come to love the new normal. I feel great. I'm healthy. I'm grateful for that every day. And I'm able to do all the things I want to do. But it's definitely not the old me. So I would say new normal for sure. But it took a while. I mean, cancer is as much mental as it is physical. I mean, that battle is, yes, you can throw all the drugs and radiation at the physical aspect, but the mental aspect, I feel like is just as hard. So, but I love the person I've become because of cancer. I've met a lot of amazing people and had some awesome opportunities that I wouldn't have had I not had cancer. And I think it's helped me be more compassionate and just, appreciative of our world. So
that's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, clap your hands, stomp your feet. For the amazing, the wonderful Erin Hinman. Thank you so much for being a friend of the fun. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody, make sure that you like this episode, that you share this episode. If you feel like it'll help, make sure you subscribe and join us next time. See you then. Thanks so much for listening. We hope that you'll take this story and use it for inspiration so that you can overcome those things in your life that were destined to break you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and rate this podcast. It'll help us spread the message far and wide to help even more people. For more information on the Kay Yow Cancer Fund and to see how we raise money for life-saving cancer research for all cancers affecting women, as well as help provide access to quality cancer health care for underserved women and unite people for a common cause, be sure to visit kayyow.com.